If you like this video, make sure to subscribe to Downfall Network for more cool content. What's up, everyone? Thralls here once again. I'm Necrotic Nick.
I'm Jammin John.
And we have an album review for you. And we're definitely diving into the underground here with a debut release. Void Rot, Descending Pillars. This is a deathdoom band from Minneapolis, Minnesota. This album came out on the 11th of September on Everlasting Spew Records. And this is pretty much a brand new, fresh band. They only have one split EP with Atavisma, I believe that's the band, and one solo EP of theirs, and that is pretty much it. So this is a really fresh band here. So let's get into it.
Yep, gets right into it with the song Descending Pillars, which is the title of the album. An 8-minute and 30-second track. Starts out with creepy synths and pulsing bass. It seems to be a characteristic of a lot of bands today.
I don't know if
start out with that sci-fi.
Synths. It might be synths. It was a pulsating bass line. It was really odd.
It sounded like could have been synths. I don't know. Once again, very horror movie.
Yes.
And then you get a dissonant guitar melody, and that kind of sets the pace for the album.
It really does.
Very atmospheric.
This album definitely labors atmosphere over riffs. Like, the production here is very dense and very murky, and at points on here I don't know if the guitars and the bass are separate enough, because it kind of blends into this kind of sludgy blob of a sound.
Yep.
And I don't know if blob's the right word, but it kind of feels like that because it kind of just oozes throughout this entire song and most of this album.
And the drums kind of have that same feel to them, unfortunately. If the tom work is not the focal point of the song, then it blends together a whole lot.
Pretty much the entire album is kind of like a giant, thick, foggy cemetery. It'd be really cool if you could see more of the cemetery, but the fog adds a really cool ambiance to it, and it definitely adds the whole creepiness. Now, I think it picks up the pace, at least maybe favors the more death metal side of Death Doom on Liminal Forms and Delusions of Flesh. Liminal Forms in particular has a really cool tremolo that is very creepy and atmospheric, and that's pretty much the thing on here. But it's actually more on the heavy side too, which I kind of like. I actually added, again, a distinct riff. Something to really follow on there. Right,
and at least the tremolo in these two songs is a lot lower register than some of the other.
Yeah. A lot of the, tremolo, which I feel like we're saying that word a lot, but there is a lot of it on here, is more of that, like, kind of higher, distant range. That's pretty much the other thing they do, whether they're doing, like, single chords that are dissonant or just, like, individual notes. The other thing is the tremolo. They kind of do that ascending thing or like kind of a descending thing just to add whatever feel they want to that particular song. There's not really like solos. Or,
no.
I wouldn't even call them necessarily leads. It's more just a layering of sound.
There's not a whole lot of variance. It doesn't really stray away from that tremolo. The couple of groovy moments that are, groovy moments that are in this record are way too short.
Yeah. And in terms of like, peaks and valleys and such, in terms of like Death Doom, like generally when I think of Death Doom, I'm thinking of bands like, Incantation and their doomier spots, Hooded Menace, which excel at Death Doom. I think they're one of the best out there. And I would say Mortiferum. They're a newer band.
Yep.
And the thing that those bands do that this band quite hasn't, figured out or done yet is they know how to work those empty spaces. Instead of just filling with like some dissonant melodies, they know how to layer it and build up, and this doesn't do the best job of building tension.
No. And it plays a lot of things safe.
It definitely goes to the well pretty often.
Yeah.
Like when it picks up, it's almost always that double time, stomp, or it goes into, kind of a light blast beat. And you kind of get this formula a lot. Now, granted, there are spots here that where it really works.
Yes. Yep.
But, the lack of dynamics kind of drove me nuts. Like, Delusions of Flesh, I love the song, but they teased this little clean part here. And I kind of figured this was going to be something that would, carry on a little bit. They'd add a little bit, melody to it behind that other
something
melody.
That would progress.
Maybe a drum build up.
Yep.
Boom, it goes right back into what I would call cruise control on here.
Yep.
And it just feels like they left something on the table. They pretty much did the same thing in Inversion, but in a different sense. The song opens up with really no build-up. It's just going right into it, that double bass pattern that we hear on a good chunk of this album. But they go into this really nasty death doom breakdown, and honestly, it pretty much just jerks the fucking car right out of cruise control for a moment. And I really liked how heavy it got in that moment. But then they abandoned that one a little too quickly to get back to what they were doing.
There was one sludgy, nasty breakdown, and I thought, like, okay, cool. And 3 or 4 measures in, they abandon it, and it goes right back to the same shtick.
So yeah, it gets a little repetitive, and I mean, granted, it's death doom, and generally death doom, you're trying to focus on a good balance of riffs and atmosphere. I think this one focuses a little bit too much on just the atmosphere, because there's only a handful of riffs that really stand out. Monolith, which is Descending Pillars Part 2, I think is one of the best tracks on here up until a point.
Yes.
Heavier than hell, single chords, accented drums.
Yep.
This one just comes in thunderous. I absolutely love how this opens.
Yep.
And it really adds a lot of cool lead melodies to it. There's almost like a solo. Almost. It's still, that ascending tremolo, but it really adds a lot to this song. And there's also these cool little just accented notes on there. It sounds creepy, but there's really good riffs in it. And then it ends on just this long, drawn out spot where they're just hitting toms over a single note. And granted, I like moments like that.
Yep.
But this just pretty much, to me, it sounded like they didn't know how to end the song, and they just kind of drew this part out.
There's a track like that. I think it's on Meshuggah's Catch 33. Just boom, boom. And I mean, I get it. I get it for the style of music that this is. But something like that would have been cooler if the songs would have had a little bit more to do in them.
One thing I actually wondered about this album and listening to it is this supposed to be one track? Because it kind of feels like it's supposed to be one track. And as one track, I think I might like it a little bit better, because then you actually have more of a sense of dynamics between the songs. Because the songs individually kind of run together in spots.
Yep.
Namely the first 2 tracks, Upheaval and Descending Pillars,
could have been just one
track, really.
Yep.
And where they fade out and where they come in, it almost feels like if there wasn't that fade out, if it just ran right into the next song as a continuous track, this might be like a more interesting listen. But I mean, overall, I think it's good. It's just too heavy-handed in one direction here, like too much of just focusing on atmosphere, which atmosphere is cool. I love that sort of stuff. But I also need riffs. I need some memorable parts in there, some real hooks. And they kind of missed that on a good chunk of this. So overall, I'm going to give this 3 stars. I think there is definitely a lot to work with this band, and I definitely will check out more by them for sure. I just need to see like a little bit more of a balance of like more memorable hooks and that atmosphere. And I'm reasonably sure these guys can do it, because they have atmosphere down already, and they've already shown that they can write some killer riffs. So it's just a little bit more of a balance there. That's pretty much it. I'm
also going to give it 3 stars. Again, kind of, I guess, to shadow off of what Nick said too. It's the first album, and there's a lot to work with. I definitely can see where they're going to be going. They've definitely nailed the atmosphere, which is a huge, huge part of this album, and that's my other issue with it. Is I need at least some sort of hook, at least some sort of groove, at least some sort of break in riffs, something to make this sound more than possibly one song. And while there were moments where they could have broken it up a little bit, it didn't last long enough. Kind of like, okay, we broke it up, let's go back and do, what we're comfortable with. And that's fine too. I understand, I've been in bands myself, I understand. But yeah, 3 stars, not bad. I want to see what comes next.
So, if you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up. And if you are new to the channel, subscribe, because we do stuff like this all the time. Catch you guys later.